Welcome back to MyFinJourney. Today we're sitting down with Dr. Mohammed Quadri, a physician, a leader who's been building at the intersection of healthcare strategy, research, innovation, and commercialization for nearly 2 decades. Dr. Quadri doesn't just have a clinical background. His background extends to business management, healthcare administration, and epidemiology. He's helped drive strategic plans across major service lines like oncology, cardiovascular, orthopedics, neuroscience, pediatrics, and even initiatives like ambulatory expansion, robotics, and virtual health. But that's not why we invited Dr. Kadri to the podcast. What we're looking to explore today is something that touches each and every one of our listeners' lives every day. Dr. Kadri has turned income into actual wealth. Dr. Kadri is an investor. He's lived in multiple countries. He's learned the systems, and he's thinking about wealth the way that matters by processing, by understanding structure, by looking at downside protection, and by building with a long-term legacy in mind. So if you're looking to become a master, if you're looking to learn these core concepts, if you're a high income earner trying to build financial freedom and you want that framework, that discipline, that value aligned approach, then you're going to get a lot out of this episode. Dr. Kadri, welcome to the MyFinJourney podcast.
Thank you so much, Mustafa, for having me. I'm truly looking forward to this conversation and sharing my journey. Congratulations to you on all your accolades as well. And, I'm looking forward to learn from you as well. I consider myself as a lifelong learner. And two things I believe in is I'll start out by saying I believe in the power of collective intelligence. I usually say that do not collaborate to compete, but compete to collaborate. And it's an important aspect of life when we change our mindset and set out with a mindset where you are thinking about giving to the world the best you have in an anticipation to certainly achieve the best that you want out of it. But at the same time, to be able to leverage the power of collective intelligence that allows you to grow and not think of money as a tool and just determine the financial returns using a scorecard, but it's something that's going to bring value to the communities at large.
I love that, Dr. Kadri. Now, as we dived deeper, I want to really understand, what got you to where you are today? If you were to look at your life and turn it into a scorecard, if you were to look at maybe a few pivotal moments in life that got you here, what would come to mind?
That's a very loaded question, right? I will
I
tell you,
apologize.
no, you don't need to apologize, but it actually brings me back to my childhood. I think about my father a lot. When people ask me this specific question, he was a physician in Hyderabad, India. People in the community called him Doctor of the Poor, not because he wasn't skilled, he was exceptional, but because he never turned away anyone. He treated first, figured out payment later, and often that payment was just gratitude. And to give you in simple terms, using an analogy, he used to actually charge 3 rupees per patient. He never used to charge more than that. That shaped something in me very early. The work matters more than the transaction, right? Serve first and value follows. But then, I moved to Russia for medical school, St. Petersburg State Medical Academy, named after Mechnikov. I was 18, alone, learning medicine in a language I didn't know, and I didn't speak it fluently. And you learn resourcefulness very fast in those circumstances. You learn that credentials matter less than competence. And I'll add over here, someone told me an equation. P is equal to C plus K minus I. Performance is equal to capabilities plus knowledge minus interference. And the interference is the white noise. So when you enhance your knowledge, when you improve your capabilities, your performance will go up automatically. When your performance goes up, your productivity levels goes up, and your productivity levels determine that the value you create for the society, at the same time the target returns that you set out at the offset. In order to achieve it, you will have to be very disciplined. And no offense to our military folks growing up in an army school, where my mother was a teacher in an army school for 40 years. And before she retired, she was also awarded by the Prime Minister of India, then one of the best teachers in India. And the discipline that she instilled in me carries till now. And that's something actually was very much helpful growing up alone in a society, in a culture that was new to me, that helped me understand how diversity matters and what's the importance of bringing different skill sets and experience and cultures together on a table and leverage that power of collective intelligence that I talked to you earlier on during this discussion. So the experience of being dropped into the unknown and having to figure it out, that's the same muscle you use in entrepreneurship. It's the same muscle you use when you're evaluating an investment in a space you are still learning. Comfort with discomfort. That started in Russia. So that was a
Let's
long winded
expand on that.
answer, but at least, yeah, go ahead.
No, I love the answer. I want to expand on that a little bit because I want to paint a picture for the audience, for the listener. How common is it for an Indian person from Hyderabad to go to medical school in Russia? I assume you did not learn Russian in India. I assume you had to learn it when you landed. I assume there were not that many people that spoke Hindi or any of the different Gujarati or any of the different dialects that maybe you were speaking in Hyderabad in Russia. So help us understand when you talk about being comfortable in discomfort, when you talk about the skill sets that helped you become successful as an entrepreneur, help us dive a little deeper to explain, what was going on and how you were able to get over that first hurdle because everyone's first hurdle isn't always that extreme, but I'm sure they can glean a lot of wisdom from your experiences.
So I'll tell you, one of my first jobs, Mustafa, when I went to Russia during summer, was working as a translator in a ship from Russian to English. And these ships were actually being deported to scrapyards. And I used to live in Archangel, one of the most northern parts of the world, and that's right next to White Sea. And
How
from
far from like St. Petersburg or Moscow or like a major city?
so it's almost 1,000 miles away from St. Petersburg up north or
And you take the train or you'd like
take
hire
the
a car?
train overnight and it's a funny story. I'll share this with you. You will
Please.
actually enjoy this. So I am in the aeroplane for the first time in my life, flying from New Delhi to Moscow. The pilot announced negative 15 degrees outside. So I looked outside the window and it was sunny and shining. I told to myself, it cannot be that cold. So, with a big suitcase of mine, I walked out of the airport, not knowing what negative 15 degrees looks like and feels like. And it was shivering cold, right? I opened up my suitcase right outside the airport, put on warm clothes before I go anywhere else further. And that was negative 15 degrees in Moscow. And from there, I had to take an overnight train to go to Archangel in deep summer, in winter, actually. It was November, I remember, and it was negative 40 degrees in Archangel.
You poor soul. And those are the temperatures where it's so cold, it doesn't matter if it's Fahrenheit or Celsius. It's just cold.
It's just, you can't blink at some points, right? And that's what teaches you life. I say quite oftenly, the sad part about life is it doesn't teach us you life. It's the experiences, it's the journeys that you have in your life. It actually teaches you the life, how to live. Like that's extremely important. And an important attribute being a leader myself of a leader is the only time you look down upon someone is when you're trying to raise them up.
That's so profound.
And also, it's important to remember many a times, yeah, intelligence matter, right? But it's not your aptitude, but it's your attitude that determines your altitude.
Eloquently stated. I'd love to hear that in Russian, perhaps another time. So Dr. Kadri, help us understand when was the first time you realized the value of investing?
First time I realized the value of investing is when I was working as a translator in the ship. These ships had significant value from a wealth generation perspective, right? When I see high earners who are miserable, it's usually because they are optimizing for numbers, not what the numbers enables them to do. So there was this businessman from Gujarat, India. He came to Archangel. We were a bunch of like 16 Indians who were living in a hostel in a dorm. right? And he was looking for someone who can help him do the translation. By that time, I was fluent enough in Russian. By the way, we started out learning Russian by actually writing Russian on a piece of paper, even to buy a bread. In those
Interesting.
days, in early 90s, if you remember Boris Yeltsin and the transition to Putin, and those days we had to stand in line even to get a piece of bread. So we used to write on a piece of paper what we need. And this investor who was buying the ships to take it to India, sell it into pieces, and then make money out of it. That in itself was a lesson for me. And I'll tell you, before I worked as a translator in a ship, there was another job where I met, and his name was Brother Haji, and he was from Chechnya, but he
Okay.
used to live in Archangel. And his business was he used to sell halal meat where there was scarcity of food, number one. Number two, he used to sell halal meat. But he monetized on it, right? And he and his partner from Azerbaijan, Baku, and they monetized on it. They actually taught me the real lessons and the value of investments. And they actually taught me that it's not what you do, it's how you do it. They actually taught me that it's not that you have to embark on a journey to invest millions of dollars to generate wealth that could be generational wealth. They actually taught me that even if you don't have a penny in your pocket, you can actually start investing by understanding how to invest and the different ways and approaches to investments, right? Which we now call as like venture capital fund, fund of funds, donor funds. In short,
Donor advised
that's
funds.
here you go, donor advised funds. But in short, it's all about using your intelligence and investing it in a way where you are held accountable. In my perspective, if you want to actually like invest using wealth and wealth of other folks who may have, let's say, like money set aside that they want to invest, but they do not have enough time and they want to invest in you so that you can actually invest in others. Accountability matters, responsibility matters, intentions matter, right? Like even in Islam, if we say that innamalu amalu binniyas, right? It's your intention that matter more than what you are doing.
So Dr. Kadri, help us understand with respect to intention. You left India, you ended up in Russia, you're getting a wealth of wisdom in Russia. Maybe at that age, let's say 18, 21, whatever the age was, maybe you're in a position where you value it, maybe not. Why leave Russia? Because obviously you're not in Russia today, right? So you're not in, this area where you're getting like negative 40-degree weather. You're in, New Jersey with, I don't know, maybe 30 degrees Fahrenheit today, right? So help us understand when you left Russia and why.
So I was born to a physician, and in those days, I even probably till now in our culture, there are two profound professions. Either you become an engineer or you become a doctor. And being born to a physician, it was instilled in me that it's a noble profession. That's number one. Number two, I actually saw my father in real time, how he served people and how the communities got benefited from his knowledge, his experience, and his ability to actually cure people, right? Today, we talk about social determinants of health, social drivers of health. We lived it. We actually saw what it means. And the definition of health, people forgot, includes emotional, mental, physical well being. Today,
Maybe you could give us one story, like the most impactful story that really sits with you today that maybe you don't tell people.
the most impactful story about my journey is so my father met an accident when I was at the age of 16. We were five siblings, right? I am the middle child, the troublemaker. Right? But my father met an accident along with my younger sister and my mom. They were in a hospital. We were at our home. Like I said, my father was known as doctor of poor. So it was day to day income, whatever he makes in the clinic, and half of it he gives back to the patients, and then he brings back whatever he can. But that night, we got a phone call from the hospital that your family is in the hospital. And here I'm sitting here at home with my elder sister, younger brother, and I'm just 16. And I tell to myself that I got to do something about this. My father had three clinics: a physician assistant, medical assistant, and my father. I went back to the clinic. I told the physician assistants and the medical assistants, my father has just met an accident and he's not going to be able to come. But, I want to be able to support you guys with whatever you guys can to be able to operate the clinics in the next few weeks. I leveraged their expertise from operational perspective. That was my beginning of how to run a business, the journey of how to run a business, the business of medicine. That's where I started understanding it. And I'll tell you, that night, I was able to make 60 rupees. I went back home and I gave it to my elder sister. And I was so proud of it. That in itself taught me the business of medicine.
And how does that compare to maybe the business of medicine that you might have seen in Russia or in America or anywhere else that you've traveled to?
Well, the business of medicine at the core is certainly we have to keep patients in mind at all times. But to err is human. We all understand that. And without harming our patients, we need to ensure that we also create margins to sustain the businesses. Right. In Russia, it's a different healthcare system, and the approach to medicine, to the business of medicine, is different in terms of democratizing it and making it a social medicine concept. Moving to United States, we live in a capitalist country. We all believe that no margins, no mission, right? Regardless of any industry. So that said, at the end of the day, the core of the business of medicine is to be able to provide the best of the care we can to our patients. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we meet those unmet needs in real time, rapidly and accurately. I always say, like, when I'm thinking about investments, if you are not addressing an unmet need in real time, rapidly and accurately, you are too late and I'm not your investor. That's the simple philosophy I carry. Wealth is what you don't spend. That's the mindset shift most high earners never make. I think that mindset shift should never happen. You always should not believe that wealth is not what you don't spend, but wealth is also what you generate from what you have.
That's so profound, Dr. Kadri. And I want to dig deeper to really understand why you feel high earners stay broke. You mentioned this example in the beginning of our conversation where there was a group of Indian businessmen who went to Russia, and let's say arguably a random area in Russia. For me, an American sitting here in New Jersey, right? They went as north as you could go. And they went there to find gold, to find their opportunity. And they, in theory, monetized off of it. And in theory, they made wealth. From your perspective, why are high earners staying broke? Is it lack of opportunities? Is it mindset? Is it that they don't have a clear roadmap? Or is it, something else?
Couple of things. I think number one, it's the growth mindset. Number two, it's the untapped potential that each one of us carry. Many a times we are thinking of wealth in terms of 9 to 5 jobs, right? Think about like the statistics, and I may be off with numbers, but only 1 in 1,000 people in the United States are millionaires or earn $1 million a year. And I think 1 in 35,000 plus folks make $10 million plus. So that in itself should tell you what the mindset and what the competition and the ability, the dedication, the diligence, the perseverance, the hard work, the smart work that goes in to actually create wealth. And if we actually think about wealth from multiple different perspectives, I think the most important point I want to actually make over here is we are stewards of wealth, right? In Islamic tradition, if you actually think about the Islamic tradition, we are stewards of wealth, not ultimate owners. That reframe is powerful. It means deploy wisely, don't hoard, and remember you'll be accountable for how you used what was entrusted to you. So that mindset keeps ego in check. The money isn't yours to flex, it's yours to manage well.
Let's dig a little deeper here, if you don't mind, Dr. Kadri. If we're stewards of wealth, if we're guardians of wealth, if we're just holding on to this wealth, clarify for us, the audience, whose wealth is it? that we're managing?
It's the wealth of the people. It's the wealth. So it depends on how you actually framing that question and in what context, right? So number one, amana. That is the trust that is placed in us. Number two is if we are taking it in the context of venture capital firms or private equity firms, then that wealth is actually you are managing of others who have interested in you. That wealth is what you are trying to generate wealth for future generation. The target returns that you are anticipating is not just for yourself but to be able to return. That's an important aspect that one needs to remember. So in short, I think, like, you need to actually be durable, you need to be flexible, you need to be nimble, you got to take an agile approach in how you actually diversify your revenue stream and generate alternate revenue streams. This is for common people, right? Like, one of the biggest thing about common sense is not too common
Why is that?
because we are sticking to the norms of the society. We have a mindset that is culturally driven by social factors in our life. And there are certain things. If you never read a book, Mustafa, I highly recommend the audience also to read The Invisible Influence. It's the influence. Think of it like that book actually demonstrates one of an important factor. This guy, he wakes up one day in the morning and he moves to Beverly Hills, and he sees every day in the morning there are like multiple different luxury cars, and he walks down the street, and then sometimes he drives his not luxury car without branding it, and then one fine day he comes back home with a luxury car. That's the power of invisible influence. So you need to understand that if you are surrounded by people who are constantly talking about wealth in terms of salary, what you make, then you are limited in terms of leveraging your potential to be able to generate further wealth.
That sounds so surreal. So let's dig a little deeper, right? Because sometimes maybe when you're 18 or when you're in your 20s, when you're early in your career, it feels like people have this arbitrary goal that I want to be a millionaire, I want to make $1 million. And it feels like that's the anchoring number, not 10 million, not 100 million, not I want, 3 to 5 million by the time I hit retirement, but I want to have $1 million. Why is that the wrong way to look at it? Because we're talking about, hey, if you're just talking about your income, you're not going to get that far. Help us understand why that's the wrong mentality or it's a limiting mentality.
Having set a specific goal in terms of like, I want to make $1 million will not help you actually generate wealth. If you want to have an investment mentality, I'll break it down for you, right? How to actually think about establishing goals. Goals has to be smart. We all know about that, right? Smart goals, when I say smart, is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, in a timely manner. And the way I set out my mentality is I'm a firm believer in an inside out approach, which uses the concept of grow, which is establish your goals, understand your reality, identify opportunities for improvement, then think about what's the implementation timeline in terms of way forward, right? How do you want to move forward? And then when it comes to like filtering down your investment ability, number one, you got to think in simple terms is, do I understand this? Not superficially, but genuinely. Can I explain the value creation mechanism to someone in plain language, which I'm trying to do in the entire podcast, right? If I can't, can I pass the opportunity for investments? There's enough opportunity in areas I do understand, right? The hardest part in life is learning to say no,
Especially in our culture.
especially in our culture. And, as Warren Buffett says, like the most successful and wealthiest people in the world, what they do, one of the most common things is they quite often say no. And
So talk to us about the first time, like you said, maybe not the first time, but talk to us about the most painful no that you had to give.
I do it so often, so I don't know.
All I hear is yes from you, so maybe I'm just blessed, but that's fine.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, like, there was an instance which I don't regret, but at the same time, I'm glad. Let me answer you this way: there is a quote. There is a quote, right? Leadership is not about always doing what your team members want. It's about showing the direction in which they don't want to go. The same applies to investments. It's not about saying no. It's also guiding them what's the right approach and also helping them to tap into their untapped potentials, right? When we come up with a solution think from innovation perspective, when we come up with a solution, we think this is the best solution in the world, right? But you as an investor, now you are evaluating the market. You're looking at whether it's helpful from access perspective, affordability, integration, competition, differentiation. You want to understand, how do you position this in the market? You want to look at different segments in the market. You want to understand, like, what are the key segments of the market where this will be a differentiating factor or will provide a unique value proposition. But to a young entrepreneur who has developed an innovative solution, thinking that this is the only solution that will meet the unmet need, then it's imperative on you to be able to actually provide the right guidance. It's imperative on you to be able to actually help him understand that even though that solution might be the best, but it's not the right fit for the market, right? I always say this, Mustafa, technology grows exponentially. Adoption rate remains flat, regardless of any industry, right? If you are unable to sell it to the common people or to other businesses, then there is no point in growing that technology, right? So I say, like, fail fast, learn fast, and move on, right?
And help
That's
us
an
understand. So, Dr. Kadri, help us understand that mentality, fail fast and learn fast, from maybe what might be perceived as like the traditional physician's approach. You mentioned maybe 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 1,000 people become a millionaire or have a million income. So what I would really want to get to in the heart of my question is really about mindset and maybe the differing mindsets you've come across through your profession. Obviously, you grew up in India, you studied in Russia, you now live in the US. And I'm curious to understand because these days everyone seems to think that they have a growth mindset. So I really want to understand fundamentally what is the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset? How does one adopt a growth mindset?
by being agile, number one.
What does agile mean?
By being So agile science is has been implemented in IT sector a lot, and now it's being implemented in multiple different sectors. Think of it like there was. I'm also a Six Sigma black belt, and Six Sigma black belt. Six Sigma, the concept of Six Sigma came from like automobile industry, and then it was applied to other sectors. The same way, agile science take into consideration rapid cycle changes. Having the ability to leverage a complex adaptive human network to create the nodes and also make it scalable and sustainable on its own. That's what matters. And being able to learn from your failures and understanding that failures are part of your success. Failure is not opposite of success. Failure is a part of success, right? So, people talk about like a glass is half full, half empty. Many a times other folks will, a normal person, if you ask them, they will say like either half full or half empty. But if you ask me, I will say there is an opportunity to fill the rest of the half. That's a growth mindset.
I love it. So, Dr. Kadri, to take it from a different perspective and maybe to try to summarize, would you say that the idea of being agile is just growing 1% and just like consistently improving, or not really? Or aiming to consistently improve?
Consistently accelerating growth.
Understood. Understood. And Dr. Kadri, in that pursuit of consistently improving growth, what have you found to be the fatal mistakes that people make, and how can they avoid them?
The fatal mistakes, one of the most common things people make is they set one goal, they do not tap into their full potential, they do not understand the full value of what does monetization mean, they do not understand what is generational wealth, and there is a huge difference, right, between being intelligent and being wise. When I talked about learning from failures, so the difference, someone told me long time back, an intelligent person falls down, gets up, and tries not to fall again. A wise man looks at the intelligent person falling down and doesn't fall down. So that's the difference. So you have to actually learn from other people's mistake. When someone is actually trying to help you understand, I think the willingness to understand the opportunities for improvement and working on it. That's one of the most important aspects. And that's where many people fail.
So, respectfully, Dr. Kadri, do you feel like it was wisdom that got you to where you are, in the sense that maybe you saw people around you that were very good at what they do, but didn't necessarily create generational wealth and didn't necessarily create the infrastructure to aggressively scale and to adopt maybe an agile mindset? And then that kind of, maybe it was that invisible hand that kind of led you to where you are today.
All of the above, but I will tell you, I'm certainly thankful to my mentors, my coaches, and from all those folks who may have supported me in my growth throughout my journey in my life, but at the same time have allowed and given me an opportunity to learn from them. Right? That's an important attribute. I think the ability to be able to be diligent and a desire to achieve something consistently, never give up. Never give up. That's number one advice I will tell you. No matter what happens in life, never give up. There is always an opportunity. Two ways, right? Two important things. Everyone talks about being optimistic or pessimistic. Optimistic people are those who find solutions amongst problems. Pessimistic people are those who will look for problems among solutions. So you have to define yourself how you define optimism and pessimism. It's not just being positive or negative.
Very profoundly stated, Dr. Kadri. I loved the positioning. So if somebody is listening to this podcast and they're finding immense value from what you're saying, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way for them to connect with me is via LinkedIn. You can always find me, Mohammed Quadri. I have two rules. I've learned it from one of my mentors. Respond to every text message within 24 hours, every email within 72 hours. So I abide by that, and I will always be available to those who are willing to share and learn. It's as simple as that. The more you learn, the more you earn.
I love that, Dr. Kadri. Throughout the conversation, it's felt like you've shared powerful, simple frameworks, implementable frameworks, concepts that people can actually apply in their lives to really help them grow and scale. I've loved how you've positioned everything in terms of systems. You've outlined different steps you've taken and how they've helped you grow. And it feels as though you've positioned it so that anyone listening to this, anyone, whether they're a high income earner or they're just getting started, can really learn and grow from their environment. So if you have listened to this episode, if you found a lot of value, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and maybe most importantly, tap into what Dr. Kadri is saying about sharing the wealth, about collective intelligence. Share this episode with a friend who can also learn and grow. Before we go, if there was one last thing you wanted to share with the audience, what would that be?
First of all, thank you so much for having me in this episode. I thoroughly and truly enjoyed the interactions and the questions, which were not just curious, but you know, it was non-judgmental. I like for folks who haven't seen or watched Ted Lasso. There is an episode, Ted Lasso, you should see. He talks about the importance of being curious and non-judgmental. But that said, if there was one thing I want people to take away, it's this: your career doesn't have to be a straight line. The skills you build in one domain, whether that's medicine, engineering, whatever, those skills transfer in ways you can't predict. The key is to stay curious, stay humble, and keep building. Growth isn't comfortable, but it's the only path to something meaningful. Thank you again.
I love that, Dr. Kadri. It's so powerful.